Have you ever watched a ship sink? I don't mean storms, explosions, or dramatic movie scenes. I mean the silent kind. The one that begins with a barely visible crack in the hull. Water seeps in, but no one pays attention. Slowly, the weight builds, the ship loses its balance. And one day, without warning, it slips beneath the surface. Life works the same way. It's not age that brings you down. It's the choices you make, without even noticing, every single day. Tiny compromises, forced silences, dreams postponed. And when you finally wake up, you're already in the middle of the wreck. Few see it in time. Almost no one turns the wheel before it's too late. Shaolin Master Shi Heng Yi often says, suffering is the result of a mind that sleeps while the body lives. And that's exactly it. People believe aging badly is fake bad luck, bad genes. But it's architecture, it's construction. Brick by brick, choice by choice. At 30, you ignore discomfort. At 50, discomfort becomes normal. At 70, it's part of who you are. The problem isn't time only exposes what you've been planting. And worse, the whole world will reinforce this illusion. It's normal to age like this, they'll say. Normal, maybe common. But normal, no. Maybe you've felt it yourself, that strange sense of drifting. Even when you're surrounded by people, life still moves. But it's like rowing without knowing where you're going. You smile, but you feel the flame dimming inside. This isn't just fatigue, it's weight. It's every time you said yes when you wanted to say no. It's every time you ignored the pain because it wasn't the right time to face it. It's when you start believing your story has already been written, and that the only thing left is to watch it end. It's not grand events that sink us, it's invisible decisions, seemingly harmless, repeated for years. If this feels familiar, it's not to scare you, it's to wake you up. Because the same logic that builds a wreck can build a voyage toward a different shore. And it all begins with attention. What are you normalizing today? What small crack are you ignoring? It takes courage to face this, because it means admitting you have more power than you thought. And power comes with responsibility. The moment you see it, you can't pretend you didn't. Now, imagine if 20 years from now we look back and say I turned the wheel in time. That's the opportunity you have right now, but almost no one takes it. And that's why the first mistake is so dangerous. It's invisible, silent, disguised as normal life. And that's exactly what we're about to uncover. And the first mistake begins with something so common. Most people don't even realize they're trapped in it. You can't see it, you can't touch it. But you carry it everywhere you go. It's in the way you pause before trusting someone new. It's in the way you replay old conversations when the night is quiet. It's in the tension that lives in your shoulders, even on days when nothing is wrong. This is the hidden weight, the silent anchor that keeps millions of people from moving forward, especially as they grow older. And here's the truth, it's not your failing body or your changing world that's holding you down. It's the resentment you've been dragging behind you for years. And very few people see it for what it is until it's far too late. Master Shi Heng Yi teaches that forgiveness is not a gift to others, it is the removal of poison from your own veins. But the modern world misunderstands forgiveness. We think it means excusing what happened, pretending it didn't matter, letting someone get away with it. So we refuse. We tell ourselves we're being strong by holding on. But here's the paradox, the longer you clutch the wound, the more it bleeds into every corner of your life. Resentment is not a shield, it's a chain. And with every year you keep it, the links grow heavier. By the time you reach your later years, that chain doesn't just slow you down, it traps you in place. Maybe you know exactly who I'm talking about. The face that still tightens your chest, the name you avoid speaking out loud. Or maybe it's more subtle, a constant irritation towards someone who barely crosses your path anymore. These grudges, whether sharp and clear or dull and backgrounded, feed on energy you can't afford to waste. It's like sailing with an anchor dragging along the ocean floor. You can still move forward, but every inch costs you 10 times the effort. And one day, you wake up and realize you're exhausted, and you haven't actually gone anywhere. There's a cruel illusion. Here we think time will dissolve resentment, that if we just wait it out, the weight will lift on its own. But resentment doesn't evaporate, it ferments. It becomes part of the way you see the world. It twists your memories. It shapes your future decisions. And as you age, this is devastating. You lose years you can't get back, not because your body gave out, but because your spirit was busy fighting battles that ended decades ago. Time doesn't heal this wound, conscious release does. Releasing doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean letting the person back into your life. It doesn't even mean speaking to them again. It means deciding that your energy is too precious to waste on feeding the ghost of what happened. Forgiveness is not an act of weakness. It is the declaration that you are done living in that old story. You are done giving power to a chapter that should have ended long ago. This is the kind of courage most people never find. And that's why they carry the weight into old age, wondering why everything feels so heavy. I've met people in their 70s who still tell stories from their 20s with fresh anger in their voices. 50 years of life, but the wound is still open. And here's the harsh truth: the person they're angry at has probably forgotten, moved on, or even passed away. The only one still chained to that moment is them. This is the real tragedy of resentment. It outlives the event itself. And if you don't release it, it will outlive your joy too. So ask yourself, what am I still carrying that I was never meant to keep? Which face, which voice, which memory is costing me more than it's worth? Because the sooner you cut that anchor, the sooner you'll feel the wind in your sails again. But it's not just the past that traps us. Sometimes, it's what we push away in the present that hurts us most. You've heard the myth, your whole life, that strength means standing alone. That real independence is cutting ties, relying on no one, moving through the world like a self-sufficient fortress. It sounds noble, it sounds heroic, and yet, it is one of the most dangerous lies you can believe, especially as you grow older. Because what we call independence can easily turn into isolation. And isolation, slow and quiet, can kill a person long before their body stops breathing. There's a reason ancient traditions, from Shaolin temples to indigenous tribes, wove community into every part of life. Master Shi Heng Yi says, a human being without connection is like a tree without roots. It may stand for a while, but the wind will come. Modern culture celebrates the lone wolf, but in nature, wolves alone don't thrive, they die. The lone wolf myth is seductive because it appeals to pride. I don't need anyone. I can handle it myself. But as the years pass, this mindset builds walls so high that no one can climb them. Not even the people who love you most. Maybe you've felt this shift without realizing it. You stop calling friends because you assume they're too busy. You turn down invitations because it's easier to stay home. You tell yourself you enjoy your own company, and maybe you do, but slowly, the habit turns into a shield. And one day, you notice no one calls anymore. The silence isn't peaceful, it's heavy. And here's the cruel truth: rebuilding connection is much harder than maintaining it. The older you get, the more effort it takes to bridge that distance. And the fewer people are still waiting on the other side. Social scientists have been warning about this for years. Loneliness in old age increases the risk of early death as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It erodes the mind, weakens the immune system, and darkens the spirit. But here's the catch: loneliness often doesn't feel like loneliness at first. It feels like freedom. It feels like control. That's why so many people fall into it without a fight. And by the time they realize the cost, decades of connection have already slipped through their fingers. This doesn't mean surrounding yourself with people who drain you. It means recognizing that connection is emotional oxygen. You need it to stay alive in ways your body can't measure. Think of the moments that truly stayed with you: laughter shared across a table, a hand held in the dark, a story told that made you feel less alone in your own mind. These are not luxuries, they are lifelines. And without them, the years ahead don't just look empty, they feel endless. I've spoken to people in their 80s who told me they regret only one thing pushing people away in the name of pride. Friends drifted, family stopped trying, and when illness or hardship came, there was no one to call. That's when the myth of the lone wolf collapses. Because in the moments that matter most, strength isn't standing alone, it's knowing who will stand with you. So as we move forward, ask yourself, am I building bridges or walls? Because one will carry you through the years, and the other will leave you stranded. And when loneliness settles in, it quietly begins to shut down the next vital part of who we are, our mind. It never happens all at once. The mind doesn't shut down like a light switch, it fades. A little less curiosity here, a little less questioning there. Days pass where you read nothing new, learn nothing different, and challenge nothing you already believe. It feels harmless at first, comfortable, even. But slowly, something essential begins to rust inside you. And here's the truth, most people never face the moment you stop feeding your mind, you start starving your life. In the last chapter, we saw how loneliness creeps in under the disguise of independence. But here's the danger: once loneliness takes root, it doesn't just affect your heart, it begins to eat at your mind. Social interaction is not just emotional fuel, it's mental exercise. Every conversation, every new perspective forces the brain to stretch, adapt, and stay alive. Remove that, and your thoughts begin to circle the same narrow track day after day. The brain, like a muscle, shrinks when it's not used. Master Shi Heng Yi often says, a mind that stops growing begins to die. Even while the body is alive, modern neuroscience agrees. Studies show that mental inactivity accelerates cognitive decline, increasing the risk of memory loss, depression, and even dementia. And here's the catch: it's not about age. Your mind can begin to slow in your 40s if you stop challenging it. But because the decline is gradual, most people never notice until it's far advanced. By then, it's not just harder to rebuild, it's almost impossible to get back what you've lost. Maybe you've seen it happen. A friend retires, and at first seems fine, more time for rest, more time for peace. But a year later, the sparkle in their eyes is dimmer. They tell the same stories, avoid new situations, and grow impatient with anything unfamiliar. Their world shrinks to a small, predictable loop, and they call it comfort. But it's not comfort, it's surrender, and the mind knows it. That's why life feels smaller, faster, emptier. This is why keeping the mind alive is not optional, it's survival. Reading, learning, solving problems, meeting new people, trying unfamiliar skills, these aren't hobbies. They are anchors that keep the mind from drifting into silence. They are also acts of defiance against the slow erosion that aging tries to convince you is normal. The moment you stop feeding your curiosity, you've started digging your own mental grave. And here's something few people admit: keeping the mind sharp requires discomfort. It means failing at something new, looking foolish, being challenged, and confronting ideas that make you question your own beliefs. Most avoid this because it's easier to stay in the warm, quiet bubble of what you already know. But that bubble, over time, becomes a prison cell with invisible walls. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something that scared you just enough to make you grow? When did you last let your mind feel alive with possibility, rather than comfortable with repetition? Because a sharp mind means nothing if the body becomes a prison. And that is where we are headed next. The body remembers every late night you ignored sleep, every meal that wasn't really a meal, every time you told yourself you'd start next Monday, and then didn't. It doesn't forget. And here's the truth: most people can't bear to face decline in old age is not written in stone. It's not just what happens, it's what accumulates when neglect becomes routine. The betrayal isn't that your body changes, the betrayal is that you abandoned it long before it began to fail. We just spoke about the mind. A sharp, curious mind can keep you alive in ways no medicine can. But here's the catch: the mind lives inside a body. And when the body becomes a prison, even the most brilliant mind starts to fade. Master Shi Heng Yi teaches that the body is the temple through which the mind walks the earth. You cannot protect one while abandoning the other. Yet millions do exactly that. They treat the body as if it's disposable, until they need it, and by then, the damage is done. Maybe you've heard someone say, "I'm too old to start exercising now." That's one of the deadliest lies you can tell yourself. Science is clear: strength, flexibility, and stamina can be improved at any age. There are people in their 70s running marathons, people in their 80s taking up yoga for the first time, people in their 90s lifting weights. The difference isn't luck. It's not good genes. It's respect. They refuse to treat their body like a temporary rental. They maintained it like the only home they'll ever truly live in, because that's exactly what it is. Neglect rarely feels like neglect in the moment. Skipping one workout doesn't hurt. Eating poorly for a week doesn't change much. But years pass, muscles weaken, balance falters, joints ache, and suddenly, things that were once effortless: climbing stairs, carrying groceries, standing up from a chair, feel like battles. This is when people say, "Age is catching up with me." But often, it's not age, it's the bill for years of small betrayals. There's a dangerous illusion in modern life that caring for the body is about appearance, that it's vanity. So people think, "I'm past that stage, so why bother?" But taking care of your body is not about looking younger, it's about staying free. It's about keeping your independence, your mobility, your ability to say yes to life without hesitation. The person who moves with ease in their 70s didn't get there by luck. They got there by making the small, boring, daily choices that most people avoid. And here's the cruel irony: the moment you lose physical freedom, you realize how much of life depends on it. A walk in the park, visiting a friend, carrying your own groceries, dancing in your living room. When the body can't, the spirit slowly stops asking. That's why this chapter isn't about fitness, it's about survival. Because every choice you make for your body today decides what you'll be able to say yes to tomorrow. So ask yourself right now, are you protecting the only home your mind will ever have? Or are you waiting for the day it locks you inside? Because even with a healthy body and a sharp mind, there's a deeper question that decides everything: what are you living for? And that is where we're going next. There's a strange kind of death that doesn't make headlines. No funeral, no mourning, just a slow dimming of the eyes. It happens when someone decides their story is over while they're still breathing. Most people call it retirement, not the kind where you leave a job, the kind where you leave your purpose. The day you stop feeling useful is the day the spirit begins to shut down. We just spoke about the body, the vessel that carries you. But what happens when the vessel is strong and the mind is sharp, yet there's nothing driving them forward? Master Shi Heng Yi warns, movement without purpose is just drifting. And drifting is a slow form of dying. People think purpose ends when a career ends. They believe they've done their part, and now it's time to fade quietly. But purpose isn't tied to a paycheck, it's tied to your heartbeat. Look at the people who age with light still in their eyes. They may no longer run companies or raise children, but they are always creating, guiding, serving. They teach younger generations, volunteer, grow gardens, mentor, write, paint, build. They understand something, that most miss: purpose isn't what you did, it's what you're still willing to give. And giving doesn't deplete you, it fuels you. The paradox of purpose is that the more you pour into it, the more life pours back into you. The danger comes when you confuse rest with retreat. Rest is essential, a pause to gather strength. Retreat is withdrawal from the world, the slow closing of the door between you and everything that could still make your heart race. And here's the truth: the world will not come banging on your door to pull you back. If you step away completely, the silence will grow comfortable, then heavy, then final. Science is clear on this: people who maintain a sense of purpose live longer, recover faster from illness, and experience less depression. Not because purpose is some magical cure, but because it gives the mind and body a reason to keep showing up. Purpose tells you that tomorrow matters. Without it, days blur together, and eventually, you stop caring which one you're in. Maybe you've seen it happen. Someone retires and spends the first few months in bliss, finally free from schedules. But a year later, they're restless, another year, and they're tired all the time. Not from activity, but from the absence of it. This is the trap, thinking you can coast through the rest of life without something that pulls you forward. And by the time most realize it, their energy and opportunities have already begun to shrink. So ask yourself, if your job ended tomorrow, who would you still be? What would you still wake up for? Because even with a strong body and mind, life without purpose is just waiting. And next, we'll face the question that strips away everything else when the outer world falls silent. What keeps you anchored inside? The waves don't warn you before they rise. One moment the water is calm, the next you're staring at a wall of grey, the wind tearing at your face. Life is no different. The storms will come: illness, loss, betrayal, sudden change. But the real danger isn't the storm itself. It's being caught without an anchor. Nothing to hold you steady while the world turns upside down. And here's the truth: most people don't realize they have no anchor until the storm has already torn them apart. In the earlier chapters, we built the mind and body, restored purpose, and explored connection. But there's something deeper, something beneath all of that, that decides whether you survive the hardest seasons. Call it spiritual grounding, call it inner philosophy, call it your core truth. Without it, you drift. With it, you endure. Master Shi Heng Yi says, "A storm does not decide your fate. It only reveals your preparation." Yet preparation isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about having something inside you that the storm can't touch. I once met a man in his late 60s who had lived a good life, by every external measure: successful career, family, health. Then, in the space of 2 years, he lost his wife, his job, and his home. He told me that in that moment, he realized he had built everything on sand. His identity was tied to roles, possessions, and routines, all of which could vanish. And when they did, he was left staring at an empty horizon, no compass, no anchor. "I didn't know who I was without the things I'd built," he said. "And without them, I collapsed." This is what happens when we never develop inner anchoring. We rely on the outer world to define us, and when it shifts, as it always will, we have nothing left to stand on. People confuse belief systems with inner grounding, but the two aren't the same. Belief can be borrowed. Anchoring has to be lived. It's the wisdom that comes from wrestling with life's hardest questions. Who am I when everything is stripped away? What is worth holding on to when all else falls apart? What is the meaning I carry that no one can take from me? The irony is that storms can either break you or make you unshakable. The difference lies in whether you've done the work before they arrive. Journaling, meditation, spiritual practice, deep conversations about mortality, these aren't just nice ideas. They are how you build the anchor while the seas are still calm. Without this, you risk being one of the many who crumble when the inevitable comes. With it, you might bend, but you won't break. Anchoring isn't about avoiding grief or pain. It's about knowing that pain is part of the ocean you sail. It's about holding onto a truth so deep that even in the darkest nights, you can still navigate by it. And here's the thing: if you wait for the storm to build your anchor, it's already too late. Because even a calm spirit can be shaken, especially when financial stress hits in your most vulnerable years. It doesn't scream. It doesn't knock loudly on your door. Financial neglect slips in quietly, wearing the mask of "I'll deal with it later." And later always feels far away until it isn't. Then, one morning, you wake up in the most vulnerable years of your life and realize the ground beneath you is not solid. The truth is, brutal money itself doesn't bring peace, but the absence of financial security can drain it from every corner of your existence. We just face the storm without an anchor, the deep inner grounding that holds you steady. But here's the reality: even the strongest spirit can be shaken if survival becomes a daily question. Financial stress in old age isn't just about numbers in a bank account. It's about choices, or the lack of them. It's about whether you can say yes to life without first asking, "Can I afford it?" That constant mental calculation erodes freedom, dignity, and even health. I once met a woman in her 70s who had lived her whole life with the philosophy of "I'll figure it out when I get there." She worked hard, but never planned beyond the next paycheck. At 65, she retired with almost nothing saved. Within 2 years, she had sold her home, was renting a small apartment, and had to decline invitations from friends because she couldn't afford the gas to get there. "I thought I was free because I didn't worry about money," she told me. "I didn't realize that I was building my own cage." Financial neglect is not just failing to save, it's refusing to confront the reality of your future. It's pretending that tomorrow will take care of itself. But tomorrow will only reflect the seeds you plant today. And here's the hard truth: those seeds don't have to be massive. You don't need millions to retire with peace. What you need is preparation, clarity, and the discipline to live within what sustains you without choking your present joy. Too many people think financial peace means wealth. It doesn't. It means security, the ability to weather storms without collapsing. It's about knowing your shelter is paid for, your basic needs are met, and you're not at the mercy of a single unexpected expense. It's about creating a life where your later years can be spent living, not constantly bracing for the next bill. Wealth can buy comfort, security buys freedom. And here's the paradox: the earlier you start, the easier it is. But even if you're late, starting today is infinitely better than never. There is no shame in facing your reality. The shame is in pretending it isn't there while the clock keeps ticking. The small, consistent choices you make now will become the invisible shield that protects your future self. Because there's one more mistake that poisons all the others, and most people don't even realize they're making it. It's the belief that your story is over. And that is where we turn next. There is a lie so quiet, so subtle, that it slips into the mind without resistance. It whispers that your best days are behind you, that you've already lived the chapters that mattered, and all that's left now is the epilogue. This belief is poison, because the moment you accept it, you stop writing. And the truth is, life doesn't end until you decide it does. Everything we've explored so far, your choices, your past, your connections, your mind, your body, your purpose, your anchor, your security, they mean nothing if you surrender to the idea that you are done. Master Shi Heng Yi says, "The tree does not stop growing because the sun sets, it rests, then reaches again." Yet to many treat aging as the sunset, when in reality, it can be the beginning of a new dawn. I once met a woman named Elena, who at 73 decided to learn to paint. She had never picked up a brush in her life. Within 5 years, she was exhibiting her work, teaching classes, and traveling to art retreats around the world. She told me, "The best part isn't the art. It's that I finally met the person I was supposed to be." Her story isn't rare because it's impossible, it's rare because so few dare to start again. The belief that your story is over is fed by a culture obsessed with youth. We are told that aging is decline, that wrinkles are flaws, that slowing down means giving up. But this is a shallow view. Wrinkles are a map proof that you've lived, loved, endured, and risen again. Slowing down can be a choice to move with intention, to savor instead of rush. And aging is not the opposite of youth, it's the harvest of every season before. Here's the secret: the final chapters of life can be the most powerful because you no longer chase the wrong things. You see through illusions. You know what matters. You can live with a clarity and courage younger versions of you never could. But you only get that power if you refuse to stop becoming. The moment you believe the story is over, it is. Look at history. Some of the most profound contributions to art, science, and philosophy came from people in the last decades of their lives. They didn't let the world decide their ending. They took the pen back into their own hands. And that's the choice in front of you now. So the question is this: are you going to let your story fade, or rise into its most powerful chapter yet? If this journey has opened your eyes, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next revelations we share might just rewrite the way you see the rest of your life. And tell us in the comments, which of these mistakes will you refuse to make, starting today?